so if you want to check it out, it's kind of furnished as if somebody lives there. You can kind of imagine what it was like to live in this home. You see the little door. Everything was short. Everyone was shorter back then, so they have the small doors. But this is the original glass as well. A lot of it's Tover House. Tover House. Lived in by a high-ranking Spanish military officer. And it was like unchanged for a very long time. And then I believe in 1784 is when they did some work on it. Importer exporter who lived there. So they have a little bit more style from the travels. This is the shade she has. I don't really know. It's apparently this is just an interesting style. I don't know much about this one and how old it is, but I know it's pretty old. This was like an addition that they lifted it up. This is the Lambia house. So this is one of the only houses left that Spanish built for the residents. So this was a military stronghold for over 100 years, and it wasn't much of a livable place. The Spanish had not really spent money or time to build, the conveniences of home that they had back in Spain. So in 1763, they built this one and several other homes to be residential homes for people living. This is one of the only ones that of the original set that was left. This is now an event home. People get married, they have parties here. The outside looks inconspicuous, but the inside is amazing.
Really?
The garden is amazing.
Wow.
So, but it's got the original.
Yes.
Copina, this is how it would have looked when it was built, which is pretty amazing. And you can see all the plants over time that have grown. Like this is the St. Francis Inn, lodging, circa 1791. Oh, I love this. This is a cool old wall here, and to show you an example of how like the wooden. That's newer. They put in there, but that's how it would have looked. It's wood or something in there. Be able to look out and see. This is probably considered to be our most haunted, one of our most haunted bed and breakfasts. See the old coquina here, how it looks here. Now that's what happens when it's exposed and it's not washed. Those guys wash it a lot. It gets moldy here, and I think that's why a lot of people have decided to cover it. So it doesn't, it takes a lot of work to clean it. Here, where ghosts live. People book this room if they want the ghosts to interact with them. And I've heard that it has interacted with a lot of the guests here. So apparently, she was murdered by her father, Lily. That's pretty. He was a mean man. He was part of the Spanish military. He was a high-ranking officer, and he had 2 daughters and no sons. Murdered her, and so apparently very unhappy still. So that's her room there in the corner. I love this place. It's got a heated pool. It's got a place to roast marshmallows. It's probably one of my favorite places, I think, to recommend people to stay. It's also just, addition here, but it reminds me a lot of Savannah, like the street. It's very Savannah-esque, and I just love it. Walking down it. 76 around this tree that's very old, it's several hundreds of years old, and They didn't want to tear it down or build anything around it, so they built a park around it. It's a nice place to come if you live here in this area. Yeah, I love the street. It just reminds me of taking a walk Augustine. It was the St. Augustine Guard. They were having so many people wanting to take over this territory to do their own. They had to protect the waters, so they came up with their own guard. And then eventually, people in Florida, all around Florida, wanted to adapt that same program, so they made it the Florida Guard, and then eventually it became the Florida National Guard. But it did start here. This is the St. Francis Barracks. So, like I said, this was a military stronghold for over 100 years. And over 300 Spanish military officers lived here. There were these barracks, really simple barracks, all, it was like a hay on the top and just mud with the walls when it first started. And they would write home saying they were miserable and they were on a plot of dirt with some palm trees. So, this is the lighthouse here across the way. And so eventually they would build it up more and more, and they became a little nicer. These were the ones they made out of the original ones. There was a fire here, I believe, in 1909. It wasn't until 1917 that they got the money to rebuild, but they rebuilt them all in their original forms from the 1800s. And there's 32 of them, these white houses, some larger than others. 32, so this would be two homes in one. There's this one here, and there's one in the back, there's one here, and one in the back. There's all the white houses. Those are all the barracks. These are now high-ranking officers of the National Guard living in these homes now. We're very happy, I'm sure, to be seeing St. Augustine.
Looking out over the
Oh yeah, this is the old St. Francis Barrack. This is where it all started. This is where, the soldiers lived, and this was really where St. Augustine, because they came from that way, and they would come in here, or actually this way, and then come in here, because this was at least rough spot for them to, land and just stay there. But then eventually they went up further. But this whole thing goes all the way down south to Miami and all the way up to New Jersey. So this is between land and sea. So whoever controlled this, all the big shipments from Cuba, India, wherever came here. This is as far south you could go in Florida for a very long time. So they come here. And then the shipments would go up all the way north through the U.S. because here you could take a boat and go all the way up and not hit the ocean, because the ocean is a lot more rough for these smaller boats to go through. So whoever controlled this port, money, had the money, because people needed to get their goods here to make money. So and the people throughout the United States needed their goods too. So they were like, okay, I'll trade you this and let's have a contract here. So this was a very important territory to have for anybody. That's why Spain was just so, they spent a lot of money. They put a lot of energy into this place because they knew that it was going to be very important. And it was important to their country. So this is the only building left for the 20 years that the English were here. This is the only building they built here that is still existing. Every other building the English built in their 20 years is no longer here. So this is the old bakery house. This is where you go to get bakery goods. Good old English bakery. And so now it is a car garage. But yeah, it's a old bakery house. It was like 1782. there's a lot of very expensive costumes. It's kind of sad. Yeah, love these. So that lighthouse was built in 1872. It was all built of coquina. So if that's why it's still around, it's still working lighthouse today. It's very important to the coast. You can go up and to the top, and view is amazing. I highly recommend it. But it is 270 actually steps up there. So you gotta be willing to work for it. So yeah, this is still the National Guard here. Have any problems off the water, these guys are always being trained and they're always ready for whatever can happen. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, here we are going in front of the houses that we were behind. So some of the houses, you see the house, there'll be a new house in front of us. So, like these houses we didn't even see the back of. See that yellow home that was there? That's behind that.
Wow. They don't have a backyard.
Yeah. Then you have a place like this one. And it's huge. This is the old shingled house that we saw. Now they have a huge yard, and their house is massive. And that's that other house they're showing you. So
Oh, yeah. That's so real. Wow, that is huge.
it really is a big house. Still a big house. Yeah, that's a Pueblo house. Up Marin is where we saw the old Marin house.
That's cute as can be.
That's built. This is a wonderful place to stay.
So
People often
pretty.
get married. They are building us a restaurant here on the water. We had one a while back, but it was dilapidated and probably was like against code. Many ways. So this is bought by the OC Whites, which is that lovely restaurant with the front area. They bought this and they're opening the work. So the work should be here this time next year. It will be open. It'll be awesome, I'm sure. Yeah. Yep. Not anymore. It's going to be very pricey. I can be a pirate for the day. Here. So this is the Bridge of Lions. Originally, the first bridge was built in 1920, and it was the first time cars could drive over to the island. Prior to that, you had to take a motor ferry, and so there wasn't much growth. The 20s to the Great Depression, that's the biggest boom in St. Augustine. If you were anybody and you had money, you came to St. Augustine at some point in your life, from the 20s to around 45. But this was a really big momentous time for people here in St. Augustine because it did help a lot of growth. A lot of people wanted to live beach side, so then they moved here so they could build. It is called the Bridge of Lions because two statues, marble statues of lions, were donated by the governor's father at the time, who was a big politician, kind of symbolizing like greatness and wealth and all that. Those are still the original marble statues. But in 2015, we had a storm. We had our big hurricane, and the bridge was damaged, so they had to rebuild.